Welcome to the Rusted Garden Homestead. This video is all about getting your cucumbers, squash, zucchini started. We're going to do transplants, we're going to do seeds. I recommend Bentley Seeds if you need to pick up more seeds for the summer. It's a wonderful company. I got to meet them. Excellent germination from their seeds. Now, this is soil outside of my garden, and this is important. I want to take about a minute or so on this. There's a lot of red clay in here. It's kind of heavy. It hasn't been developed like the rest of my garden. So if your soil, your garden earth is just first year, second year, third year, you're going to be amending that up over the years. When we go inside the garden, we're going to be planting in a bed that is now 4 years old. You're going to see the quality of soil is better. When that soil quality is better, you don't have to add as many amendments. So just keep that in mind. So if you're just getting started, your earth looks something like that, you may want to add in more of the compost when I talk about it, or peat moss or something like that. Maybe a little more fertilizer. If your beds are 3-4 years into being developed, you don't have to do as much. And that's one of the goals, is develop your garden soil, your garden earth over the years, so that when it comes to planting, you just clear out a hole, maybe drop in some compost, you pop in your transplants. Now for transplants, cucumbers, squash, zucchini, certainly you can buy them as transplants, but if you plant them as seeds, they're going to germinate in really 5 to 7 days when the soil is warm, and they plants actually catch up pretty fast to these. So you can get a jump on the season by doing transplants, but you don't have to spend the money on them. You can just pick up a pack of seeds. Seeds are good for at least 3 years. Save some money. I'll show you how to plant the seeds. You might notice these are a little bit yellow. That's okay. When you're growing transplants, they take the they take the fertilizer out of the seed starting mix pretty quickly. I'll show you how to use water-soluble fertilizer, get the more yellow ones back on track, but we'll get everything set up. So let's go inside my garden, and keep in mind, if your soil looks more like this, or you're just getting started, maybe you add in more of the amendments. If you've been gardening in that space for a while, you don't have to do as much. This is one of my beds that are going into its 4th year of planting, and it's pretty well amended and developed. You know, doesn't look like the orange stuff that I showed you, and you can see, you know, bits of orange clay still in there. Building your garden soil is a slow and steady process. You don't need to spend tons of money the first year to get it perfect. Just add compost and different things over the years, and your soil will turn out to be beautiful. So this is pretty well prepared. At the end of February, the end of fall, I put in about 1 inch of compost, maybe some other things. If you watch my channel, alfalfa pellets, just organic matter, so that I know there's nutrients in here. So pretty much I could just come, dig a hole, pop in the plant, and you know, we're going to be good to go. But I like to add in a shovelful of compost, a handful of organic granular, mix it in. That's just something I do all the time, and that just creates a nice area for the root systems to get what they need to get started. So I'm going to go get the compost, show you how I do that, and keep it simple. You don't have to do, you know, 30 different things to get your transplants growing. We have pretty good soil here. We're going to add compost, some fertilizer, and then we're going to hit it with a water-soluble fertilizer. The water-soluble fertilizer, in case you don't know, is something that is immediately available to the plant. So when we pour it onto the plant, into the root system can take in that nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium right away. It'll green up, it'll get growing. The organic granular is slowly going to break down over time and feed back to the plant. And if you have compost, manures, well-aged, or other organic matter, it's just nice for holding water, feeding the soil life, and it does feed your plant. Principles. Soil that looks something like this is pretty much good to go. You don't have to overdo it, and then you don't have to overspend. Again, I want to stress these are principles, and over time you learn how to kind of look at your soil, figure out what you need to add to it. You don't have to do this every time if you don't want to, or you can do a lesser version. The ultimate goal is to save money by using compost, building your own compost, and getting the bed set up. And I know we all can't do that in the beginning, so this is how you can kind of get started. Peat moss. This is a wonderful additive for your garden soil to really loosen it up. It holds moisture, breaks up that clay. Perfect if you have a lot of clay. Sandy soil will hold water around the root system, and you don't always have to use this. Over here, this is leaf grow. This is broken down leaves and organic matter, not packed full of nutrients like compost, but it's great for the soil life, helps loosen soil again, puts organic matter into sandy soil, and it's a good combination. This is my compost, and you can see there's some orange in there. That's because I throw in, whenever I dig out edgings around my flower beds, that goes into the compost pile. So this is a combination of all kinds of different stuff, and it's really wonderful. This is what I put down, you know, at the end of the fall, in the beginning of the spring, and that's why the bed looks pretty much like the compost. So, pretty good soil. This is all I would really do. In here, I have organic granular fertilizer. It has N, P, and K, nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, any organic granular, and I actually buy whatever's on sale, and I just mix it together in a bucket. I consider that 1 tablespoon, maybe 2 tablespoons of fertilizer, and I would just put it right into the planting hole. You never want to plant right on top of that, so you want to mix it in several inches just so the plant roots aren't sitting in there. Now if this was the heavy clay, I would add in the peat moss, and you can certainly add it in now, and that's a lot. Or I would just do, realistically, 1 shovelful, that's a shovelful there, of leaf grow or compost. In this case, with a bed that looks this good, you don't really need the peat moss, but I just wanted to show you how to really work it in there. You're really gonna just break it up around the planting area, and I just really just mix it into the surface. All these plants are gonna have surface roots. You wanna have moisture held around the surface, and that just makes a great planting hole. Peat moss again, if your earth is pretty new. Leaf grow, aged manure, if you have it or want to use it, or compost if your soil looks something like this. So the root ball's out, you're going to drop it in. You don't want to plant way up the stem, but you can get into planting right about there. And again, I'm doing this one hand, and you just backfill. Press it in. And this squash plant is really good to go, and I will do that for the other ones, for the cucumber plants. If you want a little bit of the granular, you can put out there now, scratch it into the surface. The organic granular takes a couple of months to start breaking down. Soil life will break that down, get it ready for your plant. At the end of the video, we'll water this in with the water-soluble, but that's pretty much all you have to do. Let's take this over to where my red clay is. I want to just show you how this can really fix up that original space, and then we'll go to planting seeds, which is just very similar to what you saw. We're just going to plop in 2 or 3 seeds. So we're back outside, and this is actually a clematis vine. I'm not planting cucumbers in there or anything like that. But the principle is the same, and I'm going to keep stressing that this whole video, because I want you guys to be able to kind of look at your soil, assess it, and kind of do, you know, what is needed. And you're going to learn that over time. So please subscribe and follow. I'll teach you everything you need to know about gardening, and I'll show you how I take care of all the cucumbers, zucchini, and squash that I'm planting this year. So in here, this is pretty much mostly red clay. This is where I would put in the shovelful of peat moss. That will again put in a material that doesn't have a lot of N, P, and K, a lot of nutrients, but it helps loosen up the soil. And then either 2 shovelfuls of compost into there, or this is leaf grow, which is also called leaf mold. You could use mushroom compost, you could use well-aged manure. You know, 2 scoops, well, shovelfuls, not 2 scoops of raisins. 2 scoops using a shovel, and just mix that in just like that. You can also concentrate your resources just into a space about this wide for your cukes, your zooks, and your squash, and not kind of do this for a whole 4-foot by 8-foot raised bed. That will save you some money. And then you just mix this through. At this point too, actually before I would mix it through, this is where I would throw in 2 or 3 tablespoons of the organic granular and just mix it through. So that looks much better. Still bits of red clay in here, and that's going to get broken down over time by just kind of repeating this process, you know, over the years. But this is the perfect planting hole really for just about anything that you want to put into the garden is transplants. Even though there's bits of heavy clay, don't let that stress you out. You could go through here, you could break them up, but the root system just has to get into here as a transplant. Seeds would just get dropped in 1, 2, 3, covered over. The plant will do what it needs to do, and this will develop over the years. Again, principles. All right, so you have a good idea of how to set up the planting hole or the planting space. So we'll do this area first. I'll show you how to plant seeds, 1 or 2 tablespoons. And I'm going with that I feel like, you know, this is well prepared because I know what I put into it. I also talk about compost as something that you can add because not everybody has it right away. You know, I could say every video, just put in tons of compost. That is true, but we all don't have that to start. So try and make your own compost, you know, as you get time. So, well-prepared garden soil, you're just gonna kind of make a little bit of a hill, just like that. And for squash and zucchini, I have cucumber seeds. I would put in 2 seeds. You don't want to wait around for one to germinate that's not going to germinate. But then you want to thin it to the strongest plant. So a single squash plant here, once it's up and growing, and then about 3 feet over there, another squash plant. They get really big, so you have to keep that in mind. So cucumbers, let's do those first. Cucumbers like to be trellised, so I'll show you where I already started my cucumber seeds, or my cucumber plants. You take 3 seeds, 1, 2, 3. And again, these are going to germinate as soon as it's warm. We're getting 60-degree nights, 80-degree days, super fast. They're going to catch up to these transplants. Push them in about 1/2 inch. Cover them over, water them in. We'll do this with the water-soluble fertilizer. Cucumbers, I leave 2 or 3 plants. Squash and zucchini, 1 plant. I'll plant these about every 2 feet. Squash and zucchini about every 3 feet. And then I would have some sort of trellis. I'll show you that in a second. And that's all that, you know, I'm going to do. When they come up, if you want to keep all 3 plants, you can. If not, thin them down to the 2 strongest. Now, of course, I'm going to have some cucumbers coming up here. That's okay. But because the soil was prepped in the fall, and then I put some stuff down, there's the seeds, down in the spring, I'm not going to do much. You know, open up the hole. It's so simple, too, to dig a hole, open up the space. You can always add granular, mix it in, and then there's 2 plants here. I'm going to wait to see which one is the strongest. Gently fill around it. Put some granular on the outside, scratch it in, and your plant is really set up. I'll be showing you how to do top dressings, which is basically what I did with the organic granular through the growing period of this plant again, if you want to follow me. So I've got my zucchini, I have my squash set up. Let me, you know, show you some of the other plants I'm growing, and then we'll water this in with the water-soluble fertilizer. I know that it can be confusing when you're watching different videos and you're reading different things about how to prep your beds. And again, my older videos are going to be slightly different, but they all work. This is just my effort to kind of simplify things so you understand the amendments that go in and how to set them up. So in here, rather than doing a big circle, I did a long row with the same amendments, a little bit less because this bed's a little bit better, not as good as the one I just showed you. These are cucumber plants. This is cattle panel. This is the trellis that it's growing up. You definitely want to trellis your cucumber plants. Not only will it save you space, but it's easier to control and manage pests and disease, which I will teach you how to do if you want to follow me. So this is fish emulsion. It's an organic fertilizer, 511 NP and K. I use it all the time. It has an odor to it. I'm kind of one of the few people that don't mind it. It smells like rotted fish, but it reminds me of the bay when I used to fish and crab there as a kid. I also use a product for the last year and a half called Agrothrive. I'll put that information in the video description. It's organic also, water soluble, and it doesn't have that odor. Sometimes, I've never had this happen, when you use fish emulsion, the odor can attract neighborhood cats, raccoons, and they dig up your space. Again, I'm, you know, more in the suburb, rural area. I haven't had that issue, but people do report that. Water-soluble fertilizer. Pretend this was at planting, you know, and it's okay if you do it again. He's already got it. Just a good soaking of the organic water-soluble. That will get them to green up, grow leaves. They will appreciate it. Now, I showed you how to set up the soil pretty well. You don't need to feed these every 2 weeks or anything like that. When they get to about this high, maybe you hit them again with the water-soluble fertilizer. You just keep an eye on them. If your plants ever look yellow or beat up or they just don't look like they're doing well, hit them with the water-soluble fertilizer, get them back on track. But these guys are nice and green, and you know, they're pretty much good to go. And that's one of the goals, is to develop your soil so that you don't really have to add more amendments every year, but for compost, and you just don't have to spend as much money. These cucumber plants will do beautifully here. Now when these get to, just a side note, maybe this tall and they're starting to produce, in another part of my garden I will drop cucumber seeds so that I always have new waves of cucumbers coming in. So as the pests, disease come in and beat these up, and I can show you how to manage those problems so that you get a great harvest out of these, but eventually they get beat up. You have new plants that come in. Thanks so much for watching. I hope this gives you some confidence to plant your cucumber, squash, zucchini transplants using these different methods and amendments. And also, remember, seeds work just as well. That will save you a lot of money. Transplants can be anywhere from $3 to $5 a plant. A pack of seeds cost you $2, and it's going to last you years. Just keep them in the house. You can use the same seeds over and over. Thanks so much for watching. Please check out my seed shop at therustedgarden.com, and please follow. I'll show you how to take care of this little guy. Thanks for watching.